Okay, so think about this for a second, right? You've got these everyday technologies, the ones Wi-Fi, Bluetooth things we use all the time without even thinking about it.
Right, total.
And now what if I told you that the basic ideas behind all that, like the foundation, came from a glamorous Hollywood actress?
I got a wild thought, right?
Yeah, it sounds like a movie plot or something.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's actually the real story of this incredible woman named Hedy Lamarr. And so today we're going to do a deep dive into all the material, you shared with us about her life. And we're going to be exploring this really fascinating kind of collision between her Hollywood career and these like genuinely groundbreaking scientific contributions that she made.
Absolutely. And I think what's so compelling about her story is that it really forces you to rethink, where innovation comes from.
Right. Like we tend to think of inventors as being these, like lab coat wearing scientists.
Exactly. Yeah. But Lamar's life, it just totally blows that stereotype out of the water.
Yeah. It shows that brilliance. It can pop up anywhere, right?
Absolutely. And what's particularly interesting to me is how her personal experiences, her observations, like they directly fed into her inventive thinking.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So let's go back to the beginning then, back to Vienna in 1914, where she was born Hedwig Eva Maria Kiesler.
Wow, what a name, right?
Right. And even as a kid, you can see this like intense curiosity in her.
I was reading about that, yeah.
Can you just imagine, like, picture a 5-year-old who's not content with just playing with a music box, but actually takes the whole thing apart, like, piece by piece, and then puts it all back together again, just to, like, figure out how it works?
I mean, that's incredible, right?
I know. It really gives you a sense of this, like, drive to understand things.
Like this innate drive.
Exactly. And the material also highlights how, her dad, he really encouraged this inquisitive side of her.
Oh, that's interesting. So he kind of nurtured that.
Yeah, he was always urging her to, to observe, to really pay attention to the world around her.
It seems like that early encouragement, that cultivation of observation and question it was like super instrumental in her later ability to identify problems and then come up with these like completely novel solutions.
Totally. And then, her life takes this pretty dramatic turn. She's just 18 years old. She marries this guy, Friedrich Mandel. He's a powerful arms manufacturer, but with some, pretty concerning connections.
Yeah, I was reading about him.
And the sources, they really paint this picture of her feeling trapped in that marriage. She describes herself as being like a doll, like some object of art which had to be guarded and imprisoned, having no mind, no life of its own.
Wow, that's pretty powerful imagery.
I know, you can almost feel that sense of, lack of agency there.
Totally. And it kind of speaks to this like fundamental human need for independence, for self-expression.
Yeah, absolutely. But what's fascinating is that even within those constraints, right, even in that kind of stifling environment, her mind was still like active and engaged.
Yeah, it's like she was always thinking.
Exactly. And those dinner conversations she had, about military technology, which she initially found like super tedious and boring.
Right. I can imagine.
They actually ended up being this surprisingly valuable source of information for her.
Really? So it's like those conversations were planting seeds without her even realizing it.
Yeah, and it really highlights the fact that you never know what experiences might prove useful down the line, right?
Absolutely. It's like life is constantly teaching us things even when we don't realize it.
Exactly. And then comes this incredible escape. I mean, it's almost like a scene from one of her movies.
It's pretty amazing, right?
Yeah, she leaves behind this restrictive life and reinvents herself completely. So Hedwig Kiesler becomes Hedy Lamarr.
And so she ends up in Hollywood.
Yes, Hollywood. But even though this move was liberating in many ways, it also presented its own unique challenges.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things the sources emphasize is the constant typecasting she faced.
It is kind of ironic, though, right? Because her extraordinary beauty, it's the very thing that propelled her to stardom.
Right. She was considered one of the most beautiful women in the world.
Exactly. But that same beauty, it might have also overshadowed her intellectual capabilities, at least in the eyes of many.
Yeah, and it makes you think about, how often we make snap judgments about people based solely on appearance.
Oh, all the time.
Right. And in doing so, we might be missing out on all sorts of other talents, insights,
Totally. It's a really thought-provoking point, and it makes you wonder how many brilliant minds might be out there, people who aren't taken seriously simply because of how they look.
It's a good point, for sure.
But the thing is, Hedy wasn't content with just being a celebrated actress. When World War II broke out, She felt this strong urge to contribute to the war effort and not just through entertaining troops or selling war bonds.
Right. She wanted to do something more.
Exactly. And this
Yeah.
is where her inventive spirit really shines through.
So this is where we get to the frequency hopping system.
Yes. So she was driven by this desire to help. And she co-developed this ingenious frequency hopping system for guiding torpedoes, without them being detected by the enemy.
It's mind-blowing when you think about it, right?
I know, it's like this totally unlikely pairing a Hollywood star coming up with this critical military technology.
Yeah, it really challenges our assumptions about who can be an inventor.
Yeah, for sure. So just to break it down a little, imagine you're trying to have a private conversation on a radio, but everyone else is using the same radio frequency.
Right, it'd be impossible to hear anything.
Exactly. So her idea was basically to constantly change the radio station that you're both on, like so rapidly and in sync that no one else could follow.
Wow, that's so smart.
I know, and that core concept, that shifting frequencies to avoid interference and detection, that's what underpins so many of our wireless technologies today.
It's amazing to think about that.
I know, it's like this crazy intersection, right? The glamorous world of Hollywood colliding with this like cutting-edge military technology.
It's a reminder that innovation can come from the most unexpected places.
Absolutely. But then, she faces this major setback when she presents this groundbreaking invention to the U.S. Navy.
And they basically dismissed her, right?
Yeah. It's really disheartening to read about it. They suggested that she would be more useful selling war bonds, which just kind of highlights, the prevailing biases of the time.
Oh, yeah, totally. And it's like a reminder that even the most brilliant ideas can face resistance, especially when they come from unexpected sources.
Yeah, especially back then. But again, Hedy's resilience shines through. She doesn't get discouraged. She throws herself into selling war bonds and ends up raising an incredible amount of money, like $25 million.
That's amazing.
I know, it shows this incredible determination, this commitment to the cause, even when her intellectual contributions were initially ignored.
It's inspiring, for sure.
Totally. And the thing is, her invention, even though it wasn't adopted right away, it didn't just disappear,
Yeah, it kind of went underground for a while.
Exactly. It's like these seeds of innovation were planted and they just needed the right conditions to sprout.
Right.
And then during the Cuban Missile Crisis, her frequency hopping technology, it proves essential for secure military communication.
It's like the perfect example of being ahead of your time.
Yeah, and it also makes you wonder if there were other factors at play in that initial rejection, beyond just skepticism.
Right, like maybe the technology was just too advanced for its time.
Yeah, or maybe they just didn't fully grasp the implications of it.
Or maybe the infrastructure to implement it just wasn't there yet.
Right, there could be a lot of reasons.
Exactly. And now here's where it gets really interesting for you listening.
Okay, so how does this all connect to us today?
Well, that fundamental principle behind her frequency hopping idea, it's literally the basis for so many technologies that we use every day.
Oh, wow.
If you think about it, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS.
I never would have connected those things.
Right. They all owe a huge debt to Hedy Lamarr's ingenuity.
It's like she's directly responsible for shaping our digital world.
It's pretty incredible, right?
Yeah, it makes you realize that history is full of these hidden connections.
And it makes you wonder how many other overlooked inventions or ideas are out there, just waiting to be rediscovered and maybe change the world all over again.
It's definitely food for thought now. The sources also talk about her later life, which seems to have been marked by increasing isolation, with the telephone becoming like her main connection to the outside world.
Yeah, it's kind of a sad story.
Yeah, it's definitely a more complex and maybe even a more poignant perspective on her life after the Hollywood spotlight faded.
It makes you realize that fame and fortune don't always equal happiness.
Right, and it's important to remember that there's always more to a person's story than what we see on the surface.
Absolutely. And her later years, they were also marked by some legal battles, like that lawsuit against Warner Bros.
Right.
Over the unauthorized use of her image.
Oh, yeah, and that whole conflict with Coral.
Right, and one way to look at these events is as her fight for control, over her own identity and her legacy.
It's like she was constantly pushing back against how others tried to define her.
Exactly. It's like she was saying, hey, I'm more than just a pretty face.
So as we start to wrap up this deep dive, what would you say are some of the key insights we can take away from Hedy Lamarr's amazing story?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's a testament to the power of perseverance.
Yeah.
She faced rejection typecasting and this lack of initial recognition for her scientific work, but she never gave up. And ultimately, her ideas had this huge impact on the world.
I think that's a great point. It also highlights the importance of looking beyond surface appearances. Her beauty was undeniable, but it shouldn't have overshadowed her intellect and her creativity.
Absolutely. And it really makes you think about your own life,
Yeah, like what hidden talents might you have that you haven't fully explored yet?
Right. Or maybe you haven't even recognized them in yourself.
And what contributions could you make if you were to challenge those expectations? The ones that other people or maybe even you yourself have placed on you.
It's about breaking free from those limitations.
Exactly. And on a broader level, I think Hedy's story underscores the profound influence that a single determined person can have on the world.
Even when their initial efforts are met with doubt or rejection.
Right. It really advocates for a more inclusive view of intelligence and creativity.
Recognizing that groundbreaking ideas can come from anyone, anywhere.
Absolutely. So as you go about your day, take a moment to reflect on Hedy Lamarr's journey. Think about her resilience, her ingenuity, and her refusal to be defined by others' perceptions.
Let her story be an inspiration to you to tap into your own potential, whatever form that may take.
And with that in mind, consider this: how many other unsung heroes and overlooked ideas might be shaping our world right now, just waiting for their brilliance to be recognized.
And what about, what frequencies within ourselves or in others are we overlooking that could hold the key to future breakthroughs?
It's a great question to ponder.
Definitely.
Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
To all you listeners out there, keep exploring, keep questioning, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next Hedy Lamarr.
I love that.
Until next time, take care.
Bye for now.